State Senator Carol Alvarado, and State Representative Christina Morales. Okay, so let me thank all of them, and and then I also want to acknowledge County Commissioner Adrian Garcia as well. He's not here, but I do want to acknowledge him this morning. Look, good morning, and I want to thank all of you for joining us today. Today's opening of a new testing site is the result of a lot of work by many people and a strong partnership with those who recognize that the city of Houston needs widespread testing, and that testing needs to be closer and convenient to vulnerable populations considered at risk for severe illness from this virus. This morning, I want to acknowledge and thank again Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia and District Councilmember Robert Gallegos, whose districts we are in today, along with Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, Precinct 2, Harris County, Commissioner Adrian Garcia, and State Senator Carol Alvarado, State Representative Christina Morales, who have been strong advocates in addressing the public health challenge. Today, the City of Houston is proud to announce the opening of its third affiliated COVID-19 testing site. It will open today and provide free testing throughout the week to those with and without COVID-19 symptoms. So let me underscore that. Whether you have symptoms or you don't have any symptoms at all, this testing site is open to everyone. We would not be here without the help of United Memorial Medical Center. Dr. Barone, let me thank you again for your collaboration and the work that you and UMMC have done in this city. Partner UMMC partnered with Houston Health Department to identify the location and establish this new COVID-19 testing site. I also want to acknowledge HISD. In my conversation with Dr. Crenita Latham, I asked her for permission to utilize Barnett Stadium for this testing site, and she quickly agreed. UMMC has been a leader in working closely with our Houston Health Department to target resources where they are needed most, in their collaboration with Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee on other testing sites as well. As I've said time and time again, we need more COVID-19 testing in Houston. All of the elected officials who are standing with me today have said that over and repeatedly, that we need more testing in Houston. And we have all acknowledged that our vulnerable communities, at-risk communities, are the ones that are being hit the hardest. More testing, eyes on where this virus is, will give a better indication of the impact this virus is having on Houstonians and ultimately help us to stop the spread. As the focus statewide turns more to opening businesses, and the governor will announce his plan later today, it will be important for us to know where the virus is, who has it and who doesn't have it, in order to send people back to work in a safe and responsible way. We know we have 3,284 positive cases in Houston, with 42 deaths as of yesterday. But we also know COVID-19 is more widespread in our community. There are more people who likely have the virus and not showing symptoms and have not been tested but could infect others. That is why it is important that people are wearing face coverings, as we are all today, to protect other people. Even though others may be walking around asymptomatic, it does not mean that they are not infectious. And to engage in social distancing, even while we are wearing these facial coverings. We, in the not too distant, in the next week or so, we are also working to open up additional testing sites in other at-risk or vulnerable communities. We wish we had more resources to open testing sites throughout the community, but for now, we are maximizing the resources and the partnerships. We always said that this month, April, was an important one to flatten the curve. The curve is indeed flattening, but every day, we are reporting people who have tested positive for COVID-19, and we are still reporting people who have died because of COVID-19. And the reality is, of the 42 people that have died as a result of COVID-19, almost 75% of them happen to be African American and Hispanics. And that is why it is important to continue social distancing, wearing face coverings, and to have the ability to provide more widespread testing. That's important. That's our emphasis. And quite frankly, most of us who are standing here today recognize the fact that these communities, vulnerable communities, are the ones that are being hit the hardest. And even as we now talk about opening up, it will be these people in these vulnerable communities who will continue to be on the front line at many of these jobs, serving people's tables, waiting on others who would be on the front line and still being hit hardest the most. I want to emphasize that this testing site, like all of the other two in the city of Houston, they are open to any and everyone, whether you are documented or undocumented. If you are living in the city of Houston, these testing sites are for you. Now, having said that, let me first now call on Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for all your efforts in bringing this testing center to this location. And I want to also thank, of course, Councilmember Gallegos for working with the mayor and with the health department under the leadership of Dr. Williams to ensure that not only is the testing center here, but that it is open for everyone and that it is free. Because those are very critical points. And I know that that is a focus of us in Congress. I'm glad to see that Sheila Jackson Lee is here because she can agree with me that we have one vision in mind, and that's to ensure that there are tests, and more tests. When we talk about robust testing in terms of when can we go back to the economy, it's got to be robust, and it's got to be in all communities, and it's got to be open for all, and it's got to be free. I'm glad to see my senator and my representative here because we will be depending as we collect the dollars and send the dollars down. We'll be depending on leadership in the state and in local governments to make sure that the dollars are put to the intended use, Mayor, but with some flexibility to give everyone at the local level the opportunity to make sure that their cities are well prepared for when we go back to the economy. Now, I think, quite frankly, that it may be too soon. We'll wait to see what the governor says. But until I see that there is a test for everyone who needs one, until I know that we can assure that people can get free treatment, until I know that we can be on our way to the end of the tunnel where we can see that there's a vaccine in sight, I'm not sure that we'll be fully recovered. And I'm not sure that it'll be this year. But we have to continue to work together, local, state, and federal governments, to make sure that we take care of our people. There is no greater asset. Yes, we need to make sure we help small businesses, but we need to make sure that small businesses have the workforce, have the consumers, have the people that will shop at their places. Until we can do that, because they're so interconnected, I'm not sure we'll fully recover. Now, I'm not an expert in the healthcare field, and I'm not an expert in business, but I know people. I know people. And until I see that we do have a test for anyone that needs one, and that we can make sure that every employer can test everyone that works in their workplace to make it safe and comfortable, until I see that a teacher can walk into a schoolhouse and know that they are also safe and comfortable and secure, then I don't think we're ready. But again, working together, I think we can be. Mayor, thank you again. Health Department, UMCC, and everyone, let's make sure we can make this work and then make sure that we can bring one of these to every community that needs one. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee.
Mayor, thank you so very much. I'm honored to be able to be here with my colleague in the United States Congress, we were of one voice in advocating for, first of all, I know that she was saying that when she said the word flexibility, advocating, Mayor, for funding for local and state governments, of which we are fighting, and advocating for the $25 billion that has been set aside for testing. And that is because in Congress and collaborating with our colleagues, we said the word testing, testing, testing. Today on the front page of our newspaper, we have found that this area that we're now standing in has been the hardest hit. As has been said by our mayor, African Americans and Hispanics across the nation have taken the hardest hit with the numbers of those who are dying. In addition, we have seen in this work that we've done so far in the testing sites, we've seen that the numbers that total about 16,000 in testing, 8% of those found to be COVID-19 positive patients. And right now as we speak, we are testing in the jail, and we found that those neighborhoods reflect the neighborhoods that we are standing here today. So I would advocate and join in the efforts that are being made by the city's health department, by the city's medical director, and certainly by you, MMC, that has stood up to collaborate and to open the doors to a no charge and a no pre-registration, as now you will find at this great site in Congresswoman Garcia's district, Councilmember Gallego's district, Senator Alvarado's district, Representative Morales' district, Commissioner Garcia's district. They have spoken loudly. We're delighted to be able to be in the fight to save lives. And I would conclude by saying the words of the mayor are correct. And I have called for the testing of all essential workers. If you hear our voice, come out and be tested. There is no stigma to COVID-19. No one looks anything askance at you other than to say, we're glad that you're taking care of yourself and your family. Please, there is no stigma. No one has any right to say anything about your employment or whether you have employment other than your self-quarantine of 14 days. And then, of course, to be able to test our nursing homes that have been advocated by UMMC and Dr. Barone, who has been the guiding force with Saeed Muhyiddin, Dooney Hebron, on this very special effort. So, Mayor, I want to thank you for your leadership. Thank you for the vision that you are now promoting. And I want you to get in your hands $25 billion. I want you to get that money in your hands. It is for you. It is for the county. And we will do everything we can to work with you to have those resources so you can expand in this way and mobile testing as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And one of the people on City Council that was early in advocating for testing, especially for his neighborhood, for his district, Councilmember Robert Gallegos.
Thank you. Good morning. First of all, I want to thank United Memorial Medical Center for being here, also to HISD for allowing us to have this testing site here, and of course to Mayor Turner for meeting with me a few weeks ago and committing to opening a site on the east side of downtown. So we're excited to have this site here now in our area, and I want to encourage everyone to please come out. And like the mayor stated, this is a free testing site for documented, or if you're not documented, you can still come and get tested. Quiero dar las gracias al alcalde Turner para abrir este sitio de prueba aquí en el Barnett Stadium, también a United Memorial Medical Center y a HISD. Este sitio va a ser gratis para todos las personas que están documentados o si están documentados, todavía pueden venir aquí a este sitio de prueba. So por favor vienen, si tienen los síntomas o si no tienen síntomas, pueden venir aquí para el sitio de prueba. So gracias.
Thank you. And it is important for the city to have just a strong relationship and a positive one with our state. And I want to acknowledge and call up our State Senator Carol Alvarado.
Good morning, Mayor. Thank you. And to our congressional leaders, thank you for everything that you have been able to bring, the resources to Houston and to Harris County. We have all been united. We've spoken in one united voice very loudly, very clearly, that it's been testing, testing, testing that is the key to getting back to some sort of normalcy. If we don't have the testing, we can't open up the businesses. We can't return to the classrooms. We can't go back to work. This site is important because, as it was mentioned earlier, so many of the positive cases have been centered within the Latino and African American community, which is where this testing site is. So we thank United Memorial Medical Center and HISD, and we ask the public to please come and take advantage of this site. It is free. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator. Also, State Representative Christina Morales.
Thank you so much for putting this center here. It's so important to our community. I can assure you that it's been part of the conversation for many, many weeks, and we're so proud that we've seen it come to fruition. I have to thank my colleague here, Councilmember Robert Gallegos, for being such a strong voice to make sure that this happens, and all of the leaders here coming together, we're making a difference in our community. Y por favor, en español también, quiero decirles que es muy importante, si tienes síntomas, por favor venga aquí. Esta es muy importante para nuestra comunidad. Si tienes tos, algo, o si no tienes síntomas, puedes venir aquí. Es gratis para todas las personas, y si tiene documentos o sin documentos, es muy importante. Eso es trabajo de todas las personas aquí conmigo, la congresista García, la congresista Sheila Jackson Lee, Councilmember Gallegos y alcalde y la senadora Alvarado. Entonces, este trabajo era muy importante, y por favor venga aquí y usa los servicios para la prueba del coronavirus. Gracias.
I cannot say enough for Dr. Verone and UMMC. They have simply been an incredible partner in the city of Houston as a whole. Their operation and setting up testing sites in other areas have just been valuable and vital to this city. This initiative, I want to thank UMMC, Dr. Verone, for working with Steve Williams, the director of the City of Houston Public Health. I don't know, where is Steve? Oh, with Steve, want to acknowledge Steve Williams. And in fact, let me bring up Director Williams first, because he's been instrumental in establishing the partnership on this initiative, and he's also working to establish and open up testing sites in other vulnerable communities. And so his work has been invaluable. His work has been more important than mine. And so let me acknowledge and bring up Director Steve Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know that my work is more important than yours, but I appreciate the compliment. We know that COVID-19 is an equal opportunity virus. We know that there are people who are much more likely to experience serious consequences if they become infected. People that are 65 and older, individuals that are obese, with diabetes, sickle cell disease, lupus, cancer, and other conditions. That's why it's very important for us to target neighborhoods where these conditions likely exist. I'm grateful for United Memorial Methodist Center, Syed, Dr. Verone, for working in partnership with us. As you know, we've been really trying to track the prevalence of positive cases, but we also are looking at ensuring that enough people in individual zip codes actually get tested. This effort by UMMC in coordination with us is very important. What we've agreed to do is to look at the data and have that guide us to tell us exactly where we need to be going to ensure that enough people get tested, look at the positive rates and relative to the number of people that are in the various zip codes. And so we want to have this as one of the strategies in our arsenal. What you also see is that we will also, in the next couple of weeks, be engaged in operating mobile sites so that we can be very flexible and following information that leads and guides us to where we need to go.
Thanks, Director Ryu. Dr. Barone, why don't you come?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, everybody, for allowing us to be here. The one thing that you need to understand is that I know that you guys are putting it mildly, but this is really an amazing effort between a private entity and the city. This is amazing. We're both fighting the same war, and we are not looking at what you do, what don't you do. We had the great opportunity of having Dr. Williams help us out, identify an area of Houston that is at a very high risk for getting in trouble. I know that a lot of you have seen us in other places where we have done this, but so that you know, we have tested over close to 17,000 persons, and we have a disproportionate number of Hispanics and African Americans. And yes, if you are old, if you have some comorbidities, you can get in trouble. But the fact that we're seeing young African Americans die under the age of 40 is something that we cannot tolerate. One death is too many deaths. So we're not going to tolerate that. And the only way by which we can stop the spread of this nasty illness is testing, and retesting. The fact that you are tested and you are negative, please don't think that you have it's like your carte blanche and you can go out and do whatever. No, you have to be retested, especially as we're opening the businesses. I am very concerned about that. I am very concerned that people are going to think that because we're going out now to start back at work, we're free and then we can have our parties and do stuff like that. No, please, people, make no mistake. Coronavirus is here to stay for a while. The only way we can control it is testing. Now, in Spanish, en español. Estamos aquí porque vamos a abrir este nuevo centro en colaboración con la ciudad de Houston. Estamos tratando de llegar a un área en la que sabemos que la gente se puede meter en problemas. Además, estamos tratando de que la gente entienda que pueden venir acá, es completamente gratis y no importa qué tipo de situación migratoria tengas. No te preocupes, no le vamos a hablar a la migra, no le vamos a hablar a ICE, ustedes pueden venir. Finalmente, es importante que la gente se haga pruebas, se vuelva a hacer pruebas, porque el hecho de que seas negativo una vez no significa que vas a seguir siendo negativo. Gracias.
Thank you, Dr. Barone. I was going to repeat your comments in Spanish, but since you've already done it, I'm just going to move right along to the next segment of the program. And feel free for the reporters. You can use that microphone if you have any questions. But let me just say, as the conversation now starts again about reopening, it's going to be very important for those of us who are local officials to really make sure that we don't leave behind anybody in our city, especially people in our vulnerable, at-risk population. That's going to be very, very important. And so we have to do everything we can to provide more testing. And as Dr. Barone just said, it needs to be widespread, and oftentimes it needs to be repeated so that we can keep the people in our respective city and districts, keep them safe. Now, we'll take you can pose a question to any one of us.
Mayor and members of the panel, I have heard minorities, disparities, and the drivers of this COVID within certain communities. So let me underscore and ask this my question on this point. We have genetic predisposition conditions like asthma in the African American communities, diabetes in the Latino communities, and today we even have an Institute of Minority and Disparity Health at the NIH. But every time you have a crisis, like Sheila Lee Jackson would say, it brings a window for policy discussions to come in. So let me ask, since minorities are more social people, they get a lot of their social support from family groupings, community groupings, coming in the park, parties and all of that, which are drivers to this COVID-19. What are you going to say to them? How is this helping the discussion now on minority and disparity in health? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't think it's our culture that's creating these disparities. I do think it is more to having access to health care, affordable health care, making it accessible. That's just like making sure that testing is close for people to get to it. Many people are transportation challenged, so they may not be able to get to the other testing sites that we have set up in the city of Houston, let's say at Butler or Del Mar. And so it's important for us to make these resources available to them close to where they live, because many of the people in our city and these communities are working 2 and 3 jobs. They are very hardworking. They're still not making enough to access affordable health care. And many people in these communities have always been at the margins. They're working every day, hard every day, but they may not be able to afford health care insurance. Okay, so when it comes to diabetes, when it comes to people being on dialysis, high blood pressure, lung disease, you name it, those are things that are not just cultural. Those things reflect the economic and healthcare disparities that exist within our society and have been in our society for decades, that all of us who are standing here are working every day to radically eliminate and erase. And so it's not cultural, but it is a part of the economic and social inequities that exist within our healthcare system. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, logistically, can you talk about what resources the city is providing to this site, and is there a cost associated with that?
Okay. Director Williams.
To date, what we've decided is that we use information to drive where we're going. What I have been open to is supporting these efforts, especially as it relates to people who access these sites who are uninsured. But there hasn't been any specific transfer of dollars to UMMC.
Okay, but what about staffing? Like, is it all UMMC staff?
What I've said is that in any additional dollars that they need to help make the site run, we will make those dollars available to them.
So currently there is no cost from the city to UMC to make this happen?
We're still working that out. We're still working those things through. But what I've committed to, whatever additional resources that they need, financial resources they need to stand this site up and to make it work, to make sure that we can attend to the needs of everyone at this site and in other sites as we move forward, the city of Houston will provide those additional dollars.
Can you or Williams expand on why this site was selected for this area right here?
Because it's one of those vulnerable, at-risk communities. Quite frankly, we need more. We need more sites set up. This location was chosen because I think it was ideal. Let me call on either Councilwoman Sylvia Garcia or Councilmember Robert Gallegos, because they're strong advocates for this particular site, and I think they can specifically tell you why. Why don't you?
Well, as the mayor said, you've got to keep in mind that the neighborhood that we're in. My district, which is where we're at, is 77% Latino. 1 out of 3 people, 1/3 of this population, is not insured. That also means that by insurance, I'm also including they don't have VA, they're not in the CHIP program, they're not on Medicaid, they're not on Medicare, and they're also have the some of the things that the doctors are talking about. They've got diabetes, hypertension, asthma, and also poverty. Poverty is also a factor in all this. So when you look at where you need to put a site, you want to go where the vulnerable populations are. And the mayor's correct. This is not enough. I know that I wrote a letter to FEMA together with Congressman Al Green about needing more mobile sites in our area because we've got to go where they are. We've got to make sure that. I was in a conference call where the governor criticized one of the Houston drive-through sites and said, well, we have a drive-through site, but I went by and I get reports that there's no cars driving through. Well, hello, a lot of people don't have cars. And a lot of people are, even if they come by bus, they can't go through the drive-through because they're not in the car. If you don't have a bus nearby this location, they can't come. So you've got to find a site that works and it's accessible, because the reality is healthcare has not been accessible, so we've got to make sure that the sites are. Thank you, ma'am.
Also, I'd like to add that the Houston Chronicle did a story a few weeks ago in regards to when they did a color-coded area in regards to the city of Houston for areas in the city that could be vulnerable with COVID-19. The east side of downtown was one of the areas that was color-coded in regards to being very vulnerable for COVID-19. And that's when I sat down with the mayor, which he had seen the story as well. And he assured me that once we get more PPEs, once we get more funding, we would be opening a site on the east side of downtown. And again, I want to thank him for his efforts, and that's why we're here today. Again, I want to thank HISD and United Memorial Medical Center for all working in partnership to have this site here on the east side of downtown. Thank you.
And let me just add to that. There have been 42 people who have died in the city of Houston. 42. 41 of those 42 people that have died from underlying medical conditions. 41 of those 42. Of the 42 people that have died, about 75% of them have been African Americans or Hispanics. Is there any wonder why we are not setting up sites in these communities? If these communities are the ones who are heavily impacted, and we are talking about reopening our economy, we want to make sure that as it reopens and the cameras and everything go elsewhere, that people in these communities are not experiencing this virus at a high level and dying, and nobody's taking note of that. So once you know what the data is, the data should drive your strategies. The data. And when we're looking at the data and the communities that are being adversely affected, then it should drive where the resources are being put. It wouldn't make any sense to put resources, quite frankly, in areas where the data doesn't indicate where the impact is having this, where this virus is having its greatest impact. And so that's what we are doing here today.
Do you have numbers available on how few people in this area have been tested?
Look, I can tell you that in terms of testing in the city of, number one, the state is like 49 out of 50. Okay, that's number one. Number two, there are 2.3 million people in the city of Houston, and I would venture to say that way under 100,000 have been tested in the city of Houston. So that gives you some indication.
But in this neighborhood, in the vicinity, for the people that you expect to come here, that live nearby, how many of those people do you believe have been tested?
A very small percent, I would say. Steve, any idea? Dr. Purse? Yeah. Dr. Purse, would you like to answer that question?
Yeah, so I can't give you a number right now. We have the data, but it's because of the numbers that we asked UMMC to put the site here. So it's a low percentage, and you know, you can look at it, you gotta be careful with statistics, right? So you can look at the raw number, or you can look at the number of people tested per capita. And this is a neighborhood that where people have not probably not been able to avail themselves of testing. So that's specifically why it's here. If you want the number, we can get you the number. In fact, I think the Chronicle already has the number because you put together a map. So I think you already have the number. So I don't have it with myself, but I mean, it's easily available. There's nobody. The other thing is, while I'm here, I just want to reinforce the purpose of testing is, you know, why do people want to get tested? Why do the people in this neighborhood want to get tested? And we've talked about the fact that they're at an increased risk, but also remember, if you get tested and you test positive, you are then empowered to protect your family. You know, to you know, isolate yourself or quarantine yourself from your family members. The point of getting tested is to protect others. And then should you develop symptoms and become ill, if you go to the hospital, you can tell them right away that you are positive. So there's great reason for people to be tested, and to somebody earlier was saying there's no reason to be afraid to be tested. I just want to underscore that there's great reason to become tested. Let's not become complacent. Let's all be aggressive and get tested and move forward.
Can I add something? Can I add something to that? First of all, the very fact that you're in a neighborhood of the Latino community, and you're in a neighborhood of African Americans, and many times our communities live alongside of each other. you can be assured that these individuals are essential workers in many instances. That means they have already been going out every day and interacting with people. And so the real crux of our concern is to make sure that these workers as well are tested, because they're out on the front lines helping us every day. And I join my colleagues in saying that we don't know what the governor's announcement will be, but the scientists and medical professionals believe that it would be too early to go forth and open in a massive way without massive testing. And so we're calling upon massive testing with zero stigma and zero reprimanding or anything that would cause someone to be afraid of being testing. But it is important to note that the money that was passed was exactly for what we're doing today. I emphasize $25 billion for our local health organizations, our local governments, to be creative, to test. That is what our responsibility is, to ensure that we can test. And the numbers, again, that we have seen, some almost 17,000, but 8% that are positive. In that positive group are the Latin community, the African American community, and I think it is important to note in those numbers, yes, they may not have died, but we're seeing them get very, very, very sick. COVID-19 takes a toll on the minority community. That's why we're encouraging people to test. They can be safe, and their family members can be safe.
My question to Council Member Robert Gallegos, related to quality of life and COVID and the minority and disparities that we're talking about. You are the chair of the Quality of Life Committee at the City Council.
Yes.
And obviously there are going to be cuts in the budget that you're making and some of the issues that we have to deal with related to healthcare, minority needs, the quality of life issues related to the parks and all of that. What is going to change? What are you going to fight for? What are your challenges? What are you going to introduce as new policies to address some of these issues? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I am the chair of the Quality of Life, and of course what we will be doing is working with the city and working with our other governmental agencies in regards to providing funding for the city of Houston, so that way we can hopefully open up more sites. Like it was stated earlier, we're looking at hopefully getting some mobile units, so that way we can go to areas that are needing to be tested. And that's why it's so important that we do have these tests, like it's been stated, so we can know where the concentration is, and that way we can bring in these mobile units and hopefully get test more people to find out if they are positive. And then also hopefully in time we can test for the antibodies also to see those that have been infected, so that way we can put more resources in that area. So thank you.
All right, you got the last one.
Yes, I got the last one, Mayor. This one's actually for you. I'm Charlie Etsy with ABC 13. It's a two-part question. How much is the city paying, or does the city plan to pay UMCC for all of the testing that's been done so far? And is that money coming from the federal funding that the city has received?
And the answer is yes. And whatever is needed to supplement their efforts for this testing to occur, where there's a financial difference, a need, we will step in the gap. We're also looking to work with Dr. Ferrone and UMMC to provide additional testing sites. And so we'll look at the dollars that have been already made available. Thank you, Congresswoman. Thank you, Congresswoman, for making the dollars available for the city of Houston. And so we will tap into that. And then for the additional dollars that are coming for testing, we'll tap into that as well. But whatever they need to set up these sites, of course, we're providing this, helping with the security and everything on that end with HPD, we're working alongside HISD in that front. But supplies, all of the essential things that they need to make this site work, we will join with them as a financial partner, and we're working those things through. Because this is not the only site that I would like to see set up. There are a few others that are needed.
And how much money in total does the city have to spend on stuff like this?
As a total, from the CARES Act, the city of Houston received $404 million, generally speaking. And then there are additional dollars that the city of Houston received through the CDBG, Community Development Block Grant Funding, for housing, for homeless, and things of that nature. There's $25 billion with what the Congress just recently passed, specifically for testing. And we're waiting to see what portion will come from that. But as the city moves to reopen, my obligation as the mayor is to make sure we protect the people in this city, and testing becomes the critical component. I know there was a question that came earlier in reference to why this site. I would tell you we need testing sites all over the city of Houston, all over. And so we will take those dollars. I view that as a #1 priority for me, okay? And so whatever dollars that are made available to help join with our private partners like UMC and others, we will provide additional dollars to set up these testing sites.
Okay, one more follow-up question.
Sure.
I know you mentioned last week at the city council meeting that some of the, or a lot of the funding from the CARES Act is being held up with government red tape in regards to what it actually can be spent on. And so is the money free to be spent on this type of stuff? Because I know there was some stipulations that you were trying to get adjusted so it could be used for other things.
Anything that's where the dollars, items for COVID, starting, let's say, from March going through the end of the year, that are specifically directed to COVID-19, that were not previously budgeted, then we are available to utilize those dollars. The only contention, I guess, right now is that we do not have the flexibility to use those dollars to fill in the gap as a result of the sales tax that that the city has lost, specifically as it relates to COVID-19, and that's a little bit more than $100 million. So we're not able to utilize the dollars that we have received to fill in those gaps. Consequently, when it comes to the 5 cadet classes that the city of Houston has put in its budget every single year, those 5 police cadet classes are being put on hold. With respect to thousands of city employees that will be furloughed, we won't be able to utilize those dollars to keep those furloughs from occurring. With respect to dollars that we advance every single year to the Houston Zoo, $10 million, those dollars are being placed on hold. So there are a number of deferments that are taking place because of the reduction in the sales tax, specifically caused by COVID-19. We don't have the flexibility to utilize that $404 million to fill in those budgetary gaps. But on any item, any expense incurred from March going to the end of the year, specifically related to COVID-19, that was not previously budgeted, we can utilize those dollars. So testing, we can utilize those dollars. Initiatives dealing with homelessness, specifically dealing with COVID, we can move forward. We're looking at rental assistance, specifically as it relates to COVID-19. We're looking at doing that. So that's the criteria. But it cannot be used, for example, the Congress, and I want to thank them highly, because quite frankly, that's helping us to set up this site. And so I want to thank our congressional delegation highly. But just like businesses and restaurants, for example, have been allowed to fill in to keep from laying off their employees or furloughing them, the city of Houston is a public corporation. We just have not been allowed the flexibility to fill in our budgetary holes in order to keep our employees from being furloughed and other reductions in services that will be caused as a result of COVID-19. We're still working on that. We have 2 of the finest congressional leaders in the entire world, And so I have every confidence that before all is said and done, and before we have to approve our budget in mid-June, that help will be on the way. And so that's my hope.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I know you all. Thank you. Again, let me thank all of, and Dooney, thank you so very, very much. You've just been terrific. So thank you all, and we'll see you later on after we hear what the governor has to say at 2:30.